Okay. Okay. Myself, Saurabh, and my partners Milva and Matteo from Italy. We are part of the project History Telling. Okay. So starting off with what is a museum? A building in which objects of historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural interest are stored and exhibited. Places where you get to view, interact with exhibits, frames, and installations. Why do we need to be in a closed box to do that? Why can't the museum be reach beyond the walls of its buildings to a larger setting around it? We tend to gain a lot of experience, see historical, architectural, cultural, phenomenological exhibits in the city itself, creating an analogy between the museum and the city, in which the artifacts is the architecture of the city, the installations is the experience you get when you actually walk through a city, the paintings are actually frames and movements you come across when you are actually in walking the streets of the city. The performance is the actual culture which is being portrayed by the city. Why can't the city be the museum? I'll just highlight the main objectives of what we thought of the project is one is to portray the city as the museum, regenerate, reactivate the current experience of the people of the museum, create a community associated with the network of all museums. So it might not just be the museums, but even art galleries. It's like closed network of all these places, art, architecture, culture, knit into one single network. Increase the social activities and interaction in the museum, make it more accessible to the people of all age groups, and not only looking at the locals but also keeping in mind the tourists who come. Educate the people through exploration and discovery of the city. Like for people to actually discover the city, there's a lot of learning that they can achieve from that. Using technology and gamification to increase interaction and create curiosity within the user, and create awareness through curated information. That brings us to the concept of points of interest. So the network which I talked about earlier, so we're categorizing them as points of interest. So all these museums which are knit into a single network will have these points of interest associated with them. In terms of categorization, taxonomy, like the points of interest can be one passive, in which I would call as timeless, which don't have any physical form or presence associated with it, but has more of memories and stories of it. Uh, One example of it is that the upper town of Bergamo itself is covered with Venetian walls, and in order to actually construct the walls, around 250 buildings had to be torn down. So that is something like a story, history, but is not represented by any physical form. That's why you can call it timeless. Then you have the active points of interest, which can consist of actual physical forms, the the museums, the galleries, the ruins, historic buildings, etc., which are present there and have a physical form. Then you have created points of interest, which deal mostly with the temporary things which keep happening in a city. For example, if you have artists who want to display their work, if they are holding some kind of a temporary pop-up exhibition, so that would be categorized into uh, a created point of interest. Now, actually tapping into these points of interest created by the whole network of the museums through two objects, two phases. One is through an app, and another is the association of the application with an object. So first, I'll explain about the app. So here, the citizens, kids, tourists, the app can cater to all the categories. They can use the devices and use this integrated app to tap on to the network of point of interest. They can create a profile and have this continuous feedback along with the network. So, for example, when you're creating a profile, you enter a certain set of variables like name, age, GPS location, and even your phone as a device has a lot of sensors like accelerometer, which shows you which direction you're going, a gyroscope which tells you the orientation of your phone in a plane, and the camera which can actually detect certain points which can be useful. So this is how through the app the user can be connected to the network, and there will always be a continuous feedback loop from the network to the user through his device. Then the app will have a browser in terms of augmented reality, in which it can detect certain points which are preloaded into it, and it can give you an additional layer of information which is associated with that app. So for example, the maybe a lot of spots within the city itself are considered as these spots, and the museum would actually register them as these points of interest. And the app, when they detect a certain view, would actually it would register in the app as the same point of interest as generated by the museum, and the network would send data to the user's device, giving him multiple much more information regarding that interest, or maybe even overlays to create that experience. Another aspect of the app would be a GPS ping. So, for example, you might not necessarily always have time to just go and visit the museum. So, a lot of times when you're in transition, if you have maybe 5 minutes, you're waiting for something, and then if you are if you're in close proximity to a point of interest, you will get a small ping or vibrate on your cell phone, which would tell you that okay, there's a point of interest nearby. Would you like to go and have a look? And give you some information regarding it. So which would even create some kind of a curiosity to you, so that you can go. Then again, in terms of seeing it as in terms of digital longevity, so that the experience just doesn't become similar, you actually talk about having a virtual leaderboard. So for example, if there are a set numbers of points of interest already in the city, which as I earlier said, active, but these temporary points of interest will come up, like will keep popping real time, and it will keep as soon as the point of interest pops up, you will get a notification on your app saying that okay, there's a point of interest which is in a certain proximity around you, and do you want to go there? And the more points of interest you attend, you can somehow register that okay, you've attended that event along with the app, and then it gives you in a way a ranking that okay, you have attended a certain points of interest. Then again, even looking at the idea of like the two ideas of tangible user interface and augmented reality. So even though you have an app which shows you augmented reality, we don't want people to continuously be engrossed in their devices, but actually using these augmented reality markers, it can provide a lot of social interaction between people. Then in terms of just the aspect of having a browser for augmented reality in the app, there can be a lot of different scenarios which can be created. One would be a museum treasure hunt, in which you would start off with a particular exhibit, and based on what you start off with, it will give you clues as to what path you should take to the museum. And then again, the same thing is not just with respect to an app, but maybe interrelationship between 2 points can unlock some third point, which would be like an added bonus. And even in terms of, because you have the device, you have more of a, like we had even seen earlier in terms of the markers, you get added information on the marker itself, like as you can see in the below image. And these markers are not just individual specific, but when you have 4-5 people coming together, they can actually interact with one another, and the information can flow from one marker to the other. So just like stating some examples regarding the same aspect. So this is a variable museum, and the main aspect of it was that all these frames in the galleries have these computer vision recognizable markers, and before entering the gallery, you need to give a survey which tells the computer certain aspects about you, and based on those aspects, the content of the gallery which you see keeps changing based on the person. So in this case, the markers are always constant, but the network would keep continuously changing the content based on what kind of user is accessing it. May it be adult, maybe it's just kids, so it can change the content accordingly. Another example was the London Street Museum, in which they developed this app with in which it in real time overlaid photos of old London with the actual real time data which was coming. And one thing about this app is that they called it a window through time. And the people who developed it actually said that this app not only was a really good aspect, like a lot of people used it, but it increased the number of people going to the museum also by around 3 times. So which had this physical aspect also. Then this was one more example which I like myself saw it in the History Museum in Hong Kong, where you actually have this overlay of what you perceive, uh, what Hong Kong used to be earlier. Then even in terms of context of Bergamo itself, like what we thought was that in terms of there are a lot of there's a lot of content which can be made by the museum to be recognized in a certain way, or the museum can actually use existing content in the city itself and have these hidden markers. So, for example, just seeing this small marker, if you create a brand in terms of the marker that wherever you see it, a person can know that okay, I can somehow interact with it. And if a person, as soon as he might be just traveling, maybe in transition, but as soon as he sees the marker and he will like, oh, this is associated with the museum, so I can somehow interact. And the interaction can be in some sort of added layer of information. It might even be maybe telling him to go a certain way. So this this layer of information is not just constrained to a single image, but can also be an animation. So it can actually lead you to take a particular path in the city. Then even the aspect of whenever we go to a museum, we always have the like there's always this question of how do we register ourselves? Like how do we say that we have been to this museum, how we have been to this event? So the art passport was a project like that in Bergamo itself, where within the network of museums you have these stamps at each museum, and you have your passport. So whichever museum you would attend, they will give you a stamp, so which is like a physical memento which you get. And the same as can be seen below, in which you actually use like interactive elements like computer vision, in which they would give you a memento. So again, the app would somehow want to register you so that you have attended a particular point of interest. Then even the like just examples on how that app would kind of create interactivity. Like these three pictures actually have AR markers embedded into it, and when you actually view it with an app, like the first picture would actually give you a 3D view of how you would see a camera. The other would be how you can actually navigate through a car. And the third example is interesting because you can on real time control the figure. Like for example, you can real time control the figure here on the screen itself. So earlier I talked about the app, and now I'm going to talk about the object. So in terms of the object, for active points, the points of interest which are already existing, the intent of the physical object would be to start the experience and story from the city and lead the user to the museum through gamification and curiosity. Then to educate people about the museums and create an incentive to interact with these objects. Then giving more like a functional aspect to it also is considered. Then in terms of the actual properties, what we thought was that the object would be self-dependent and not relying on any existing city infrastructure. It can create, it has to create a brand in itself, so that these objects, wherever people see them in terms of the shape, the color, they will directly associate it to this network of museums. And even in terms of having a function of maybe a display space where maybe even actual replicas of the museum can be displayed. It might be an actual physical replica, or it might be even the augmented markers which I had shown earlier in the variable museum, in which the content can keep changing. Then even the interaction screen, where you can apply the aspects of gamification for people who are maybe waiting, or to somehow get an incentive to go and interact with that object. And also these objects would be directly connected to the network and the app simultaneously. So this is just like a basic rough prototype which we thought of in terms of these objects could actually be present in museums, in churches, or anywhere around. They would be actually creating this incentive that people in cities always want to charge their phones. So using a solar cell to actually take the sun's rays and storing it and using the same for people to charge their phones. But then for the person to actually charge their phone, it would be a good incentive that he has to join the app or join the program or maybe interact with the object for a certain amount of time. Because a lot of times people do keep their phone on charging and they're just waiting. They don't go away from their phone. So again, it's more like an incentive. Then yeah, this is just like a basic design which we thought would be good in terms of. Then, as earlier we talked about fixed points of interest and some which may temporarily come up or disappear. So in that case, the there was a thought that we can just have an app to register a new point of interest. Whichever person wants to hold the event, show some performance, or show some kind of display of his works, he can directly register himself on the app and he can display it. But then the whole point of what kind of information are you showing? What is he showing? So that is why we thought that it would be better to have it curated information through the museum. So if a person wants to hold any kind of performance, he would approach the museum, take this portable uh, portable object with him, and register himself. And as soon as he registers him, the museum would rent it out to him, the object, and as soon as he activates it, all the people who are associated with the network, with the app, will get a notification that a new point of interest has been generated in the city. And through embedded projectors as well as the GPS and QR code, they can at any time register themselves that yes, they have attended this particular point of interest. So again, like in terms of actual application, like this was one case study which was associated with Bergamo itself. So here they actually talked about combining the contemporary and the historical together. So in this project, they invited contemporary artists to come and display their works in really old, forgotten historical buildings, so that people would actually come and not only seeing the works but actually even experience the space and the history of the place. So these are areas where the portable uh, object can be actually used. So basically, the combination of this app and object to create a ever-changing curiosity for the people to discover the city, like through a museum, is like what the main idea is.
That was a mouthful. Yeah, okay. That's yeah. This is Dr. Peter. So the only thing I would like to comment on is it's a bit like what I told you. I begin to realize that probably it would be really cool over the other platform to do something like this that you have a map and you have a signature and then it allows so people to participate in that and then in the technical project we actually focus on one aspect that we would like to further explore. The one that I became interested in, again, people love for good reason this overlay between history and how whatever looks now and how it looks. Or, for that matter, it's not just history, it's like if you look at something, you have an overlay that unveils. Actually, by putting the veil, you unveil aspects of it that you otherwise wouldn't see. So that's a very profound idea. And we love that even if it's out of the situation, not in history. So we like to buy these books about old monuments, where you have to lay it and stuff. But what is beautiful again, if you have an interactive map system, would be and to be able to locally take information, you could do the kinds of examples that you gave, like the street art then you could really start implementing some of the ideas of how you move between these sort of um, different poles of this edgeless medium. So basically, that's my comment. But there is a lot in it. It's very rich, and probably you can do it. But this is a doctor, and it would be nice to any contribution that you can give and that you can give and everybody can give to distinguish maybe parts that could become part of an map. It could be the same map for many people, so that in next year people could use this app to specify the process.
That's your thesis.
It's your thesis.
Yeah. You should. I think you should focus on. I mean, you should do so many different things. It would be nice to say, okay, I'm working on this with this museum. Just pick one thing, and just develop it further, because all of them could be very interesting. There's so many ideas, but for this, I think we should just as going forward, just pick one. And just see how it can develop better. I think that's something that I suggest, because all of them have a lot of potential, and a lot of them could be interesting in this context, in a certain context. But yeah, I would just
Because even the variety of objects that you show in all these videos, you can't see them. Right? So maybe even if you just play the game of following one, you will be limited in a good way. You'll be constrained um, by what you're trying to do.
The content, right? When you associate it with one museum.
I think that you showed me that, I mean, in the group with the China program, that it has very similarities, a lot of similarities. So maybe you can combine both and then do something. And a lot of them take this idea of augmented reality, multiple layers, layering virtual with the real. I mean, you're talking about the same ideas, but I would just focus on one type of technology and maybe one type of device, and then just develop it. Because otherwise, in the next year, they could do something really helpful.
Thank you.
My colleagues are Elena Moreno and Christina. I'm Christine. I'm a MR2 program. Our project is called Age of Mod, the hashtag. and the subject is focusing on graceful aging in Bergamo. Okay. So we were first concerned with how age is just really simply a factor, how many years you've lived, but it's really what identifies as considered to be elderly. But really, it's actually just a trait. Age actually comes with a different type of trait. You can also define it as grace. More age comes with grace. It means that you have more wisdom. It also means that you have more of a longer time of performance or experience. It also means what kind of well-being or what type of habit you've been practicing all over your lifetime. So throughout this presentation, I want to go into the perspective of kind of introducing some nice, graceful elderly. One is Giorgio and one's Julia, hypothetical characters. And then also talk about septenarians, people who've lived above 100, and their survey traits. A lot of these folks enjoy modern entertainment. They're not afraid of technology. I really like this image in the top right corner where the grandfather is on the laptop and the grandson is reading the newspaper. So they're really encouraged. They like enjoy the technology. They're happy to Skype with their grandchildren online. And they love playing video games. And they're very active in the social media as well. 18.6% of the Bergamo population are elderly. They're scattered. It's not like it's one classified people that you can just group. They don't live in just one particular neighborhood. They're like this kind of diagram they're kind of scattered. So we want to really bring them up to kind of what the modern society is, and also really be considerate in narrating their life patterns and focusing on their well-being. So in a lot of products that are right now about sensing elderly or aiding their support is a very dependent system. It's either to contact the emergency, notify the family members, or a doctor. But we are more interested in this duality of the individual being able to access this product, so that we really get to see this type of interaction. It's not just one single point, and it's a two-way system that should be happening in this type of product. We began to talk about different types of scales of sensing and scales of actuation. So, for example, a very subtle actuation is when a very like temperature change, or like you start to smell a different scent from what you normally smell. More of a intrusive would be something like a window opening, a slamming, or like a projection that wasn't there happening, that sort of thing. And we wanted to we start to kind of use in terms of our field work. So in terms of data, we noticed that the percentage of people that are living alone, so it kind of ranges from 65, most people live with spouses or with their family, and then from like 75 to 80, that's when it kind of turns around and they start to live alone. And the people that care mostly for elderly are actually children, like grandchildren. So we kind of like the idea of interaction between the young and the old. And then we also kind of look into diurnal services, which are social centers in Bergamo. They're scattered around. One that we will focus is the Tosta in the High City. And here are some of our field. Before we started, we had this also hypothetical. This is Julie again, a snapshot of her typical schedule, what she likes to do, what problems she has, a picture of her today, and her favorite picture from the past. This is, I think, one of my teammates' grandfather. And so in the blue are similarities that occur between the interviews, and the red are the differences. So touching and smelling are one of their stronger senses, while hearing and seeing is one of their weakest. A lot of our interviewee candidates enjoy gardening or planting, and they also live around. They schedule their life around TV. So with their meals, they watch TV. With their family, they watch TV. In the morning, they do. So it's a lot of activity where this kind of touching the remote happens. And one of the interesting thing about Francesco is that he's actually very open to the idea of technology. He owns an iPad. He's willing to learn more. He thinks it's a little complicated, but he finds like a good potential for it. So moving on, when we try to kind of diagram the whole like life in the scenario, all these people, we talk about kind of what they like to do on their leisure time. Yeah, it's almost time for effort. You know, it's like a daily things that they need to do. They have to eat, they have to sleep, they have to wash. But then they also like things that they don't have to do that they enjoy: gardening, exercising, socializing, talking and reading, watching TV as well. These are kind of an ugly image of all the different products that are out there. These are American dollar signs, ranging from like the most useless product and the most expensive, thing like a blood pressure monitor that's ginormous, and to probably that's a little bit more engaging, thinking that in the right direction. But I thought the box, the bed fall sensor was kind of clever. And then also I will talk a little bit more about these black boxes. So like something that's about kind of monitoring their health, gamifying an object. Also something that really kind of engages in their hands. First one is the pill dispenser. That's actually kind of an accessory. They forget about taking their pills. They need to sort it out. So what can we do about it? Earlier we talked about the TV. They have to take medication usually around their meals, and they also watch TV during their meals. So we saw that as an opportunity. This isn't an example that's out. It's a prototype where it's the necklace of the pill dispenser, and the actuation is kind of interesting where it will light up. That means you need to get your glass of water, and then it will tell you to push a button, and then it dispenses. And then once the dispenser is empty, it will notify like the family member, and then they can refill it. So it is dependent, but it also kind of interactive in that they have to push the button and then they have to go get water. This is an example where it's a giant piece. It's not mobile. It will light up the interface with the web and the connectivity, the email notification. That is more advanced than the other one. So again, they watch TV a lot. So we thought, why not use a remote control? The pill dispenser would so it also, because they wake up and then turn the TV on, it would also kind of record whether what time they woke up, whether they are getting up. If they haven't turned on their TV, that means they're either ill, they're out, or something's happening. So we thought, if the TV is not on, it'll wait like about 8 hours. If they don't get up, then, or we'll wait about like 2 hours, then it'll notify the family member. If they still don't get up and the TV's not on for another 8 hours, they'll start to notify a medical emergency. Please too. Yes. This is kind of a sample snapshot where like it will evolve around cooking, like drinking water, relaxing and sleeping. A possibility of kind of retrofitting the cell phone, because the cell phone could do a lot of things in terms of like calling that family member or the medical emergency, having a separate dispenser between AM and PM pills. A critique on the fall bed sensor, an idea about sleep. A lot of lack of sleep or insomnia is due to the fact that they either take naps or like they haven't like fully gotten a good night's rest of sleep, good night's sleep. So they did studies where brief behavioral therapy to increase their sleep quality overnight. It was kind of simple. It just had to do with like how their brain works. So it's like not drinking so much water before you go to bed so that you don't have to get up in the middle of the night. So simple habits. And also sleep is very important in terms of like longevity of your life. It can help you reach over 100. So there's American products like sleep mattress where you can manually push the number in the mattress. The air pressure will change, so the firmness and softness changes. And then it also, like in terms of the interactiveness, we're thinking that the mirror can have like this display, so that it's not something that is so intrusive, and so you can kind of do a diary of your sleep. And also, because sleeping, it also deals with their breath. we're thinking that in the pillow you could have some type of pH sensor that kind of measures your vitals as well. Also using the alarm clock to like display messages also. And the left is kind of a simplified version of like a Fitbit to help them kind of monitor their daily exercises and stuff. So those are kind of three products that work together. The last one is or this is second to last one. It's going to talk about the gardening, focusing on gardening. If you look at the right is an example from a plant device, and the left is an example of like a body device. It's kind of similar in terms of like the temperature, the pH, how much light they're getting, and then it's the same with humans too. So it has like that parallel that's very interesting. This is a product that is here right now. It helps. It's useful for elderly because the balance will just notify them. They don't have. It will reduce the task of like lifting the pots and doing kind of like manual labor. And it will be a nice kind of notification. It helps you. It will notify you whether the soil is getting too dry or if it needs to have other kind of plant aids. This is more of a gamified idea. So a lot of these folks they're forgetful. It'd be nice to have like a little reminder. My grandma always runs out and she's like, "Oh, I need to go back because I like left the stove open, the stove on, the light is still on." So we were thinking, once you step closer to the door, there's a projection that gets activated, and it'll screen whether certain lights are on or if your gas oven is on. So that was kind of a easier way to be also interactive and not so dependent on an existing system. Elderly are also, or in Bergamo, they're very social. These are kind of the graphs of all their activities. Us is being social, and A is being autonomous and being alone. Most of their activities are very sexual. The indoor ones, I chose the outdoor ones. And in Bergamo, this is a map of all the diurnal centers, Centro for Diagnostic Italiano, residence RSAs, and also hospitals. The lighter pink skinny ones are the diurnal centers, and those are where all the like social activities are happening. And we decided to focus on the Sedalta. They have these lunch banquets, and that's where these people come and join and have kind of like a nice time. I think people really dress up for these, and they like mark their calendar and they really live up to these events. And so they can also, have this kind of invite and non-invite sort of thing to like be lived up and happening not just at the banquet but continuous. So combining the idea of like Facebook, Foursquare, all these like digital apps that are for young folks, but simplifying it and having just one, consolidating in a simple way. It could be either on an iPhone or an iPad. This also kind of goes on to the fact that Francesco owns an iPad. It'd be nice for those folks, the aging population, are being more comfortable with these digital tools. Creating a profile, taking an old photo, and making it look more modern. Also, a very simple interface in terms of chatting. When you're chatting with your grandchildren, they like to type, but it's hard to read or like type. So they can do the push and pull talk, and then whatever your grandchildren text, it will recite it in a robotic voice, or it can be a different voice, and then they'll do the opposite. If they record, it'll come back as a type. And then also your grandchildren could also send photos. So in this conversation, the daughter is saying, "Oh, your granddaughter wants to show you something," and the granddaughter sends her something. This will image of things that I don't know for Christmas. She wants to share with grandma. And also, you don't have to switch between people. Like it'll be all one interface between the daughter talks and so you don't have to move through text messages. You can also easily take photos. So just do autofocus. You can take a snapshot. Also, you can do alert emergency. If you just hold it for 1 second, it'll contact your favorite number one person. If you hold it for 3 seconds, then it'll call an emergency. This is the whole check-in idea that you're talking about. So there'll be a scanner once you enter the diurnal center, and then it'll let you know. And also, when you're at home, you'll get notifications of your friends checking the diurnal center. And then you can also notify them with this prompt saying that I'll be there, so that they'll also know like how that kind of conversation Also, if you don't have an iPhone or a smart device, you can have something as simple as a keychain. You can scan it into the Dino Center. It also kind of gives you your own status too about your daily activity, how many miles walked or whatnot, how active you've been. And okay, thank you. Sure. So this is a prototype again. So the center would be where like the center facility and the ID. The center would also be for the right. So this, if one of them is on that, means that you would say the time is there. One of the things is there. This can also show your status. So when I walk to the two blocks, 3 blocks, or something like that. Being able to kind of, it's a simple way. It would be just a keychain that lights up as a way to show your signals and your sensors.
You know, it's just so nice to see. First of all, they really talk about this notion of aging gracefully, because all these things that are used for the old user and all like these horrible devices for hands. And the beauty sensor that becomes a beautiful piece of jewelry or like this sort of almost metallic stone or just these ideas are very nice. It's the kind of you really want them. I mean, you want them not only for always, you want them because they are beautiful objects and because uh, they fulfill their function, but they have a political also, I enjoy very much your graph, the aperitivo at the end, and the way you actually summarize all the interviews that you have been doing because it looks like you have been doing beautiful work. But I like that visualization because it makes it easy for somebody to capture the essence of what you consider either from your studies or because that's the way you like to think about it. These different aspects of a person's life that you want to focus on and offer facilitation. Um, I only have, I am very enthusiastic about this project. The only one that you have to be careful is actually the one where I made a joke, where you don't have this smart tools where, for example, if somebody doesn't watch television for a night, he calls the police. Because maybe that person on that age just wanted to decide to not to watch TV, which could be fantastic. So it's always this balance between how much control you give to a person and how much you actually want other people to be informed with something going wrong. And this is just a detail, it's not absolutely not a comment.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very nice project. What I like about it also is how you describe the app. I think just thinking about the app is a very interesting. I mean, again, my tendency is just to focus on these things, just because it could be very rich just to have the thinking what kind of how an extortion app can be for this age group. I think just that it's a big challenge already, and it could be a very very nice project because a lot of I mean it needs to be appealing. Basically, it should not be as it is. You want it because it's cool, not because it's there to show you that you're not capable of doing something. So that's I think that balance is very important, and I think you've started it, which is nice. I think just continuing on that would be a nice. Very good.
And I think if it works, actually, everybody, it's like if we have this quality of university, so everybody will have. You know, it have a very, so what you offer is almost a very smooth way of being healthy that is different. And probably people of other age groups are probably will use it. So probably it's well designed. Many people will find it interesting for many reasons that we really didn't mention. So you have this quality of it. It's the same with this. I always felt like jewelry, I'm always waiting for not smart jewelry, but somehow beautiful jewelry that does something else than just being hanging there and decorative elements, but simply beautiful. So maybe the art and emotion of the jewelry would be nice because even if they are bracelets, I would wear one of those. I would never buy black, you know. But something that must be like, I mean, the same way you wear a watch, that's two parts of your family. Yeah.
I know what's
Anyway. Now, yeah.
Thank you.
It can be a good conversation. A conversation would be a bad coming from I hope it's good, constructive.
All right, who's next? Fred?
How many of us?
Two.
You're trying now. Yeah, because you set the expectation. You know, the best thing that you can do is just physically just want to say that you're not ready for today. So I can say it now. And then we will laugh. And then we'll laugh.
All right, good afternoon. So the Grow in Bergamo project is all about.
Because you don't have the name of the student in the this like technology Italian student.
Sure, that was going to be
at
the
the end.
right, but we worked with Roberta and Elisa, who worked with the stakeholders and developed the outreach plan and coordinated on the design of the project. And the Grow in Bergamo project is really about the people of Bergamo, of all ages, their food, and where it comes from. Please don't try and read all of these quotes. I'll sum them up. But basically, what's important is that at the scale of the European Union, at the scale of the Italian government, as well as the province and the city of Bergamo, there are policies and advocacy for locally sourced food and products for their health reasons, their health benefits, but also for their economic advantages, which are simultaneously both very important issues in Italy and Bergamo today. There are a series. I went backwards, didn't I? There we go. There are a lot of people doing work on these efforts right now, kind of working from the vendors, the farmers, the grocers, and the restaurants, to the organizations that oversee and are trying to advocate for those locally sourced foods and products. Some of these are right in Bergamo, some are at the level of the province, and some are more national. And they're working with partners like the University of Bergamo, the province, the governmental organizations, the Chamber of Commerce type organizations, and the public health organizations. And they're all doing different things at the moment. Some of them are developing mapping tools that can connect people with where these resources are. Some are putting forth publications that talk about guidelines and the benefits from an educational standpoint. Others are writing publications and sort of a journalistic attitude, trying to spread the word. And but they're all doing these things individually. And Roberta and Elisa met with many of them and talked to them about what they're trying to do and what they said they needed. And what they said they needed was actually to work together more and to try and build visibility and stimulate greater interest at all ages within the nation in general, but definitely in Bergamo. So trying to find ways to come together, work together, and promote interest in the benefits of locally sourced food. And so that's where Grow in Bergamo comes in, actually trying to make the connection between those people and advocacy groups who are working to make the food system stronger. And really the way we are trying to make this happen is by allowing the citizens of Bergamo themselves to contribute to a locally sourced vision for locally sourced food. And they would be doing that through a website that actually connects them with these partners who are working with them. The gateway to that is an application that actually allows them to participate. There's the outreach plan that makes all of that happen. And then eventually there's going to be a physical component that would be part of events. We're going to go into that a little bit more at the moment. But the idea here is to provide a way for the residents to imagine locally sourced food systems and contribute their own ideas. And connect the residents to those local food resources and stimulate awareness, creative thinking, and community engagement for all ages. And the plan is to develop this application so that people themselves can create their own images like this. And we're going to talk more about what that is. The idea of visualizing gardens, productive food gardens, in places where they do not exist within the city now.
There are many types of places of the garden people can imagine of the future Bergamo, green Bergamo. This is the suburban area, and this one is in the campus of Bergamo. Also, this is a station, the public space of the city. People can imagine the images of the future of the green vegetable in different places. There are also can be installations inserted to this project. Also in upper town Bergamo, there can be vertical vegetable walls. With abandoned industrial areas, there can also be some green area for vegetables. Here are some vertical gardens built on the existing infrastructure of the city. These are also two examples of upper town in Bergamo. You can insert vertical planting to these walls. Yeah. It's not only
The sense of humor being important to this project.
not only a way of green, but also a way of production of food. Some examples are for the leftover spaces of the city. And also, people can use their imagination to imagine a greener Bergamo.
And so what this builds on is the ideas that other websites and other programs have used, like the Big Art Mob, where it's a crowdsourced public art museum, where people upload photos of what they think their community's public art should be, or the Museum of the Phantom City, where designers upload the work that they've imagined for different parts of the city for others to look at, even though it's not built yet. Again, there's mapping components involved here, but it's the idea is that the people themselves put forth what they think is a neat idea for their community going forward. And so let's talk for a moment about the website itself, which is really the connection, or the information connection between the people and those groups doing the work for local food at the moment now. Again, we're imagining this for all ages, so we try to design a system that would be very simple and legible and easy for people to navigate. So there'll be four main components: a gallery of images that you could take a look at, resources for local food that you could be connected to. You could upload on the website an image that you created, or you could actually download the app. The gallery, if you clicked on that, it would bring up a map of Bergamo with the highlights of all the different places that people have uploaded imagery for. Of course, in the beginning, we'd have to populate that imagery ourselves. And then those images would be shown on the left. And as you scrolled over those locations, or as you scrolled through the images, they would be enlarged in front of you for you to see. So there's this sort of online museum of what people have suggested. If you clicked on one, it would tell you who did it, when, and zoom in to where that was located. If you clicked on resources, it would connect you to the educational materials and those partners and organizations who are making things happen, and where you could meet with more people about how to participate. If you wanted to upload an image from the website, you could upload a photo you've taken, and you could upload your augmented version of it, and you would be able to map it. What's also important for both the website and the app is you could upload images of gardens that you've seen that you want people to be able to use as material in their rendering. And so you could download the app for whatever version you needed. Or you could, if you were walking around the city and you learned about it from advertisements, you could register the QR code and download the app in that manner. So the app itself would also have similar functions. So when you opened it up, you could make a new garden, share a garden that you photographed, or view the gallery, which would also allow you to be notified as you moved through the city of ideas people have had for places close to your location. If you're going to make a new garden, you first let people know where you were if your phone was not or your device was not GPS enabled. So then you locate yourself and be able to see everything around you. And if you wanted to try the app, first thing you do is take a picture. You'd then be prompted if you like the picture that you've taken. You say yes. Then you select the area for the garden by drawing on the touch screen. And now it's time to select the garden you want to use. So you'll be able to scroll through a database of images that at first would be populated by the program, but then the community would upload their own images of gardens to be considered. You choose the one you want. You're able to scale it and slide it into place. And then you could click align the image, and the perspective would be matched to the vanishing point of the existing image using the typical photo stitching software. And then you trim the image. And then you could upload it. And then you let people know who you are. So at that point then you would have contributed to this vision. Or you could go back and try it again. But the idea is that over time, and really what we're talking about here is the next 12 months, the community would build its own series of ideas for what the future of local food and Bergamo could be. And really this is a social tool. This is not designed to put forth specific proposals that should happen, but merely to acquaint people with all the different opportunities and to foster participation in local food by the community. What's important here is we're also, over the next 12 months, is getting ready for the Expo in Milan in 2015. And the Expo's motto, of course, is feeding the planet, energy for life. So the idea is to have complementary events and activities in Bergamo that benefit from the energy created by that Expo. And so part of that would be the idea of physical installations that could happen throughout next summer, based on the ideas generated by the community over the next few months. And
with the three public space in the city, we can also put installations to educate or to advertising the concept of green Bergamo. There are some media information walls, and it should be a collection of pictures and education of the existing local food organizations, as well as offer a green infrastructure for the city. These installations is flexible. It can be rotated and it can be combined of the small units to suit for different classes.
The idea is that those flexible installations could be made of materials that were actually grown in Bergamo as well, such as wood and that sort of thing, and actually provide an interactive space where people could actually use the tool and generate imagery right there, and also simultaneously be connected to those resources and learn about local food in Bergamo. So the idea is that over the next few months, the digital tools will be developed, as well as the outreach plan would go into effect with local stakeholders, with the idea that the development of the tools would be done over the summer, and then throughout the fall and early spring there would be activities in what we'll talk about a little bit with the public, generating the ideas leading up to the Expo in May of 2015. And besides the installations, we think that the idea of competition is going to be an important part of the incentives associated with this project. And so, meaning by competition, one level could be actually judging some of these ideas based on a set of criteria that the community developed, and have a competition that leads up to an awards scenario during the Expo. There could also be different events with the market, the local food market organizations and Taste of Bergamo events, the idea of involving the local restaurants at key moments. And for each of these three general age groups that we're talking about, there have been a different combination of partners and activities imagined. Kind of one of the key ideas here is to actually come into the school system and have events where you were working with the younger children to either facilitate their use of the application and educate. Simultaneously, that could be done with seniors as well, where you're actually providing tools to them at key locations for them to use technologies they may not have in their home, although some of them do. And then in the middle, we'd actually be working through employers to identify opportunities for groups within different companies to compete against each other for different types of local food imagery ideas. The important part here being that the community itself generates information that it could then use to educate itself and to build awareness. And that's the first phase. The latter phase, after the expo, would likely be moving into more of the feasibility of what can happen where based on the technical necessities of building gardens in an urban situation. Or people who are now gotten more excited about it can then learn from people maybe using the T-swap idea from people who have the expertise in construction or managing gardens. They can start to learn more about the how to do things after they've been excited about what may be possible.
I think this is difficult because the question I have with your with the type of offering to help people imagine and envision the garden-ness and the possibilities in the city. To me, the paradox is that we offer a cookie-cutter approach to envisioning spaces in which one could see the seeds of something growing which are not there now. And the paradox is that by specific approach that we offer, you cut the possibility of seeing the seeds of something growing. Because what you do is that you placate on the top of different places in the city, ein Plakat, we say in German.
Something that's finished.
No, it's something that is dead. It's dead image of a seed of something that could be growing. So it plays the role of what you see when you go in a rustic, pseudo-rustic pizzeria, where you have the images of the great vegetables and the things on the floor. It kills the very idea of the floor. So that's strong, but I will try to explain a bit better. What I think is that between your very specific offering of how people should imagine the possibilities in a participatory way where they do it, and have them sort of functionally and technically get into the business of making some of the possible places gardens, there is a place where I would see a project that I would be more interested in, that would be more poetic. So it could be, there are many different artsy experiments in this. There are the whole tradition of gardeners area in London, area. What these guys do is that they just plant flowers in the most absolutely unbelievable places, like, in the crossing of two roads and so on. And they do it at night. They do it in different ways. They build shoes for elegant women that when they walk on the ground, it actually plants the seed each time. I mean, there are all these funky, nice projects. They are the seed bombs, the people who create seed bombs, which you buy. It looks like actually some marijuana, a bowl of marijuana. And what it does, it's very carefully crafted so that it creates an even ecology of flowers that belong well together. And it's a result of amazing studies and so on. There are many things like this. So I don't need to take it away from what you propose, but there are many ways of thinking about how to bring the world of the biology, the garden back into the city, and how to think of the city and the garden differently when you bring them together. There are also the tradition of the parking. So this is personal, but what I would like, everything you say about the art is nice and about the local food, but what I would do is really take a different design path. I would show seeds of something very nice and very awkward that happens in certain corners of the city that show that this could grow into something alive and that has to do with local food. So without trying to be realistic, but instead of clunking an image of a lettuce garden that doesn't even fit the perspective and so on, just to take images of maybe corners in the city where people are already doing these amazing things. Because people in cities now they do these amazing things, that have to do with growing stuff and for the beekeepers, etc. So that's my comment. I see a paradox just in the design choice that you have taken, and I kind of not like what it ends up doing because it doesn't do justice what you would like to achieve. Because it brings in this artificial but not so funny way. It's a wrong way of looking at envisioning what a garden is. It's sarcasm. My German comes out. You apply a poster of a very clumsy image of what a lively garden could be because it's not even well inserted in the context. It's a cookie cutter.
But I think what I don't disagree with your idea that it's not about a living thing.
Yeah.
Your points about that I think are very strong. From where we were coming from was what we've seen were designers do more certainly less clumsy rendering and the effect that it has on people. And the idea was to have the people themselves create that effect. So it's what it seems to be for us a strong connection when you're trying the seeds that we're sowing are with the people themselves and to find a way for this tool to either be the first step, the entry to that, a more meaningful engagement with the land and gardening in the city. But actually try and have it be something that plants seeds in the people themselves that they then interact with each other to bring fruition.
Together with like like the very same thing that is likely to want to it's like meaning and to share the project. But if you think of it, the crudeness of the collage technique that they are offering is a bit naive, and because of that, it creates a certain level of sarcasm about what you desire. So, but the first time that they explained the project for me, it reminded me of a very personal experience. I mean, there is this situation of exile for Iranian political activists. So, there are people who have been exiled like outside of the country, and they fear to come back to the country, and they haven't been to the country for 30 years now, and they desire to leave the country. So there is a series of like this imagery that has been created during the past 3 decades that they just clip their face or their body from a picture and they collage it to main areas that everybody is like sympathizing with, right? So when you look at these crafted images, you know that this means that they haven't been to that space for 30 years. And at the same time, there's somewhat in that space because you're seeing this image. So basically, there is this sort of the line between what you really desire and the reality is blurred in a way that your still can basically differentiate between reality and desire. And this act of differentiation or the possibility of making this, noticing this difference can be provocative or incentivizing the move from reality to the desired state. So because of the fact that this image looks odd, may initiate the desire to actually create a reality out of this image, which doesn't look odd, but still is green.
So the purpose of the app is to
Crowdsource is green desires.
show that there is
But in our mind, part of what it would do is give people a tool that they could use to do different. Nowhere would we be saying that this is one thing. But the idea is that people are free to imagine, even if they're putting their idea on someone else's property, it's more like this is an idea I want someone else to see. And that maybe right at the beginning of the expo, there would be 6 months worth of imagery created, and maybe then it's curated in a way where there's lessons from Bergamo pulled out of it for moving forward. It's the first raw step in gathering, in community engagement. Maybe not the, that was our.
It is an awkward displaced by my awkward displaced idea imported into somebody else's property. It is like the very same. It reminds me of when you know that you can't afford a Prada dress. Like, you know that it doesn't, size 2 doesn't fit you. So you can't afford it and it doesn't fit you. Still, you pick it up and you basically hold it in front of you in the mirror.
So
Why?
there has to be a way to do this that maybe if I am the only one to live it the way I live it, just work. But if other people have there has to be a way to do it, what you say, in a way that makes it more clear that it is an oblique way of saying.
Okay.
So maybe you shouldn't, for example, correct the perspective. It should show this place. It should show that, like, I don't know, 200-pound lady is holding a size
Or a
one
squash
Prada,
this big.
and he's making like $20 a day. So she's making $20 a day, so there is no way that she can afford it. But there is no problem in desiring it.
So recently I was working on a project like this. That's why I'm thinking about it. So is the purpose is this something for planning or for people just to look there and enjoy what they have done? Like
The target, the immediate stakeholders that we have are the organizations that are currently trying to get people and the slow food providers and the local food providers together. So that is their ultimate goal, is to get more participation with the organizations that already exist. And they need something to bring themselves together, and they need something that gets people interested in the idea of local food at a new level. Okay, so
I think that you can look at it in terms of like different scopes and scales.
But the reason I'm going
Short
to use
term,
this because I'm an artist, or I care about putting a garden here, or I just want to make something fun.
I mean, if you're,
citizen,
or you're,
or a board
okay, so if you go to the scale, you're a student, an elementary school student, and there's a discussion that day about urban gardening, and you get to do this game on an iPad that are brought in for the day, where you get to imagine these gardens in all kinds of crazy places, and you see what happens there. And at different levels, it's something that people do in order to, I get to imagine something differently than what it is. But what gets drawn out of it is actually a year from now, could be many different things, where then the community gets to see its own ideas, and then therefore, whether it's the political leadership or whether it's the university or these different groups, they get to take what they've learned from what the community said about itself and use that to take the next step. It's a way of building awareness and involvement, engagement, that then can be used at the next step, which is to actually move towards something more like implementation.
I would call it a crowdsourced political campaign. Because when you talk about the audience, like for example, with the mayor, right, and there's this sense of, okay, we really don't want to do this at this point because nobody cares, right? So there is this sort of political culture, last year we went to mayor's office, and whatever you would say, we're going to make it won't fall in their domain. Nobody actually cares about this. So there are these assumptions that nobody cares about this, nobody cares about that. So by crowdsourcing the campaign of, you know what, maybe people actually care that there is a leftover space here, that nothing is happening like it. So once this map is populated with these awkward contributions and desires, then perhaps a doer or a political activist can basically refer to this and you say, you know what, at least 20 people desired something.
On one plate. Maybe we need to do something with that one plate.
I think this is all. I roll out the wrong message. That's what I am a little bit afraid of. So maybe it's just a little tweak on how you do it. Because it's almost simple, it's almost hopeless. You see, and I understand if you talk the example that you gave about Iran, I understand it. But here precisely, because the reason why people are desperate is because of the politician, because of the fact that you always replace the poster with the reality. And in this particular case, what is nice for an app like this, even if it's not literal, is to just give a sense to people of where something of what they would envision and like is happening. A feel that it is happening. And that they can see that.
I think I understand.
Yeah.
Part of what you're talking about is you said there's a hope.
Yes.
That you're telling us make sure that it doesn't that's not perceived
yes.
a few weeks from now when
yes.
they've advanced the idea.
Yes.
And that part of addressing that may be showing what is happening that is hopeful.
Yes. Exactly.
So it's finding a way to merge what's happening.
Basically reporting on what's happening.
In some respects, it's bringing. Well, if we're bringing
some any action on some gardeners in the level or
well, if we're
just to make the envisioning of the garden in space more hopeful and that's maybe the most
right now we have any part we can bring more of what they are doing now toward that end and kind of close that gap that way. We have the city generating its own ideas, and we have the people who are on the ground doing the work now being closer. We can show that more.
Right now, I think it's too much, giving too much about design agency to the user, to the generator.
Exactly.
That's too much. Because I personally don't like green wall, like vertical green wall. So right now,
this is democratization of
yeah, but
Designers don't like it.
I mean,
Because this is how we make our money.
we have a massive program landscape, architecture, right? I mean, I'm not. I do like the idea of the democratization.
No, especially because the people there, they have better images in their mind. That's what I'm feeling. This is why it's a very hopeless message.
Right.
You see, because it's almost flattening the image that most people already have, because they have a good experience of being in a place where you don't have the metropolis here and the wilderness there. La campagna is beautiful. And people have sophisticated ideas about how they have merged in the past and how they should continue to merge in spite of the sacrificing all these intermediate spaces by industrial forever landscape. So in a way it's flattening down I mean, I don't want to decide. I think I should shut
I
my
have an
mouth.
example that I can talk to you later about that. I'm working on a research project very similar to this, but I can talk to you later. So we don't have time.
Yeah.
Not today, it's another time.
Sure.
Set something.
Okay.
We have another class after this.
Thank you.
Let's do this like order of availability. Somebody really needs to do, for example, she has a meeting. I mean, at 30. If somebody has a meeting, let me know. That is not
Which one?
an excuse.
One university.
Oh yeah. Why universe? I found it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Alright.
Copy. Let's copy. So yeah. No, that's okay. I can start.
Sorry, I'm pushing this. Because you're gonna have to take that. This is the media box.
Okay. So what? Open up our website. Is that?
You're locked into.
Alright. Cool. Yeah. So how do we have
It's for example, for you, I guess, because I can speak to you. That's why you're in your politics was. Okay. So, can we?
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Sorry. How are you? Oh yeah. This is our phone.
This is our website and this is
No,
called
just
one.
turn it on.
This is our project. This is one university, and our vision is kind of want to integrate the university with the city with knowledge and talk about that.
So we're trying to engage all the citizens in Bergamo and university students and try to integrate these two to make the city bridging. Because right now the Bergamo University is actually the buildings are isolated in the cities, and there aren't that many connections with the university buildings and to the city. And we're trying to bridge that through our project and as a knowledge hub and information.
And
So initially we Maria from Portugal did an initial spatial analysis in the university in the Bergamo space syntax. Yeah, and with the discussion between the Bergamo side and Maria, we try to come up with the best locations to have this knowledge hub and the information hub. And so she did a studies on how the flow of the traffic is in the streets and what are the major streets and minor streets and trying to find the optimal open spaces for these hubs to engage the university and the citizens of Bergamo. So these are the current isolated campus, and then we're trying to bridge these campus through a series of our blue space call in the cities and try to connect the buildings as much as possible and connect the cities through these squares and hubs. So this is kind of our diagram of what we're trying to achieve. There's a university and there's a city, and we're trying to bridge these two sides through what we call blue space. And It's a hub for knowledge and culture, sharing the knowledge, culture, and information. And we're trying to use these hotspots and Univision Media Box and also cafes and restaurants in Bergamo. So we did some design case studies.
Versus the Wi-Fi hotspots. There are three categories: is symbolism with functions, and light with functions, and music with functions. And the furniture, like fun together with function, and branding with function, and arts with function. And the branding also three categories: signal with function, object together with function, and advertisement with function.
So we try to do a case studies where there's some duality of each project. So our design ideas have different categories, and the first one is the web and mobile application that kind of brings everything together for the university students and also the citizens. So the idea is like with this map, you can access to, you have an access, you know where the cafes and restaurants will participate, and also the UniBG box, which is, will explain this, was donated by the Allen group and Allen himself.
And this interactive map kind of like this interactive map is kind of our basic structure of our idea.
And the blue space is where we call our squares. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to come at the end. We'll try to have this interactive website where it will have all the locations of the hubs and where all the UniBG boxes will be located, and the cafes and restaurants that participate. We're in process of recording and talking to the stakeholders about these. So the idea is that where you can go back, you can create an event. You can create an event, and you can also like rent out the UniVigi box. We'll explain later what the UniVigi box is, and then you can see all these cafe and restaurants that participate into this program. And these guys, the cafes and restaurants ultimately participate so that maybe they will provide the places like a spot spaces in their restaurants for like university students to, like study and like gather, and then you can schedule it and you can see what's going on in the events in the cafe or restaurant or the blue spaces.
And the interface of the app. Because like we both have the website and the app for this. Do you want to show this?
So we're trying to kind of like have these three categories in the app where you can actually select each individual items and also see what's going on in the app. So it's pretty much like same thing as the website, but also we're trying to have kind of running app and website at the end.
And the second category is our blue space. Is the actual projects which will be installed in the city.
So we're trying to come up with a like a symbolic design object where it also becomes a Wi-Fi generator and also gives it also provides the information on the screen. And these will be located throughout the spots where we chose. We think the best places to integrate the city and the university.
Its basic function is a Wi-Fi hotspot, but we also think it's kind of a signal of knowledge and information.
So we're trying to have like furnitures around these guys, and also somehow this is integrated with maybe like interactive sound system, and also provide like information to the city. And it can also has a charger. But these will be scaled down so that it will become a 4G items for each participating restaurants and cafes. So they get kind of like help, but they get some advantage by participating in this program.
And these are the collages made for this.
So this media mobile unit is donated by Alan. But so, so this object is actually developed by GSD in 2010, and it's actually it's a run. It's on the wheels, and then it also displays projectors throughout all the 4 different sites, and it opens up to become a bigger screen and closes. And there's a smaller screens inside the media box, and we're calling this Univigi box.
And it could be acted as a classroom, and our Google Space, Google Monitor are together with this, so people will gather together here.
And another function is when it's not used, it could be acting as an information hub to the city. So if there's maybe a soccer game, it can be play soccer game, or if there's important messages that or government or some company that wants to give it to the citizen, it could act as one of those. And also it can be acted as maybe companies, like or trying like the companies or some organization where they want to like promote something in like squares. It could act as that. And this Univigi box can be rented out to students or anyone or like an artist who wants to like use it through the app and the website. But we also thought that there are a lot of usable like furniture is missing in the Bergamo that can students or like people can use it. So, and most of the times a lot of places are actually empty with squares. Maybe it was because winter, I don't know. But we wanted to kind of come up with the branding and the furniture function to the city. And so like we were studying some case studies. We want to use the existing infrastructure like architecture, and then come up with something that also brands this program of one university, and also this brand and color will be continuously deployed out in the city to engage the city and the university together. So that's it.
That's our team members.
Yeah. So what is nice actually is you see in a way coming from outside and not knowing anything about how the world works. I think it's nice to have a map that can develop even a contact that actually has information if I understand the terminology here. And so then you can really focus on the way you can within the activities that are relevant. And in a way, the ones that you pass very quickly at the end are probably the ones that are worthwhile trying to pursue and maybe to negotiate with the city so that they take some of these ideas and try to implement it.
I like this, the fact that you even go back to the container also that can describe things. And the branding, the blue branding is nice. I think they are very nice elements. Just one quick comment here, just a technical. The parts are not meant to be used as posts, as I mentioned. You have to think of content that is used and file and the location of it is. That's unless you're going inside. That's the only thing that.
We wanted to maybe propose an idea where the fiber optic right now is good for stuff to fill from the far away. So we were also maybe the Univigi box doesn't have to be fiber optic, it can have the screen that gets also deployed and it will be cheaper to the screen. But this is more like future.
Instead of the screen, you can put a projection, because then it could be Wi-Fi inside, and then there is projection inside. It's the fire.
Alright, thank you all.
Your contribution. An expert on
Guys, are you still awake?
Thank you for coming. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or
You're talking about the project estimate for the year. Thank you. Thank you.
see you, Dave. Thanks so much for coming over. Matteo,
Yes?
ci sei? Ok.
Sì, ci siamo.
Ce l'abbiamo fatta, grazie
No, grazie a voi.
per aver fatto nozzata. If any of you, sorry guys, if any of you Italian guys has any comments, you wanna share like project by project now, or
When you talk about the project, I can share that comments as well.
when are we?
Over there, by the way.
It's 11:30.
What?
Yes.
No.
10:20. 10:20, right?
No, it's 11:20. No, we cannot do that now. It's too late.
I mean, it's one day in the history of our collaboration. Because I mean, if it is like reading, every comment for every project is going to be chaos and can be kept track of.
Stefano,
Sì? Sì, dimmi.
perché noi non facciamo commenti adesso one to one perché
Infatti no, non c'è.
Or they can share it in written and then
Sì, la prossima volta. Ok, va bene. Senti, allora grazie a tutti per aver fatto notata con noi. Ciao!
un
Ciao,
saluto
ciao.
generale da tutti.
Ciao, grazie. Ciao. Aspetta che mi connetto che non ero connesso. Aspetta che ok.
We don't see them yet. Hold on.
Ciao. Ok. Ciao ragazzi, grazie.
Sentiamo, grazie.
Ciao Matteo, grazie.
Ciao.
Best show of the night. Yeah, we had wine and cake. First of all, very complimentary. Very coffee. Have some coffee. Second, I really wanted to